Welcome everyone to the inaugural, the first ever episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. I'm Wade Mathews, your host, and I'm also the manager of Be Ready Utah here at the Division of Emergency Management. Joining me today is Bryan Stinson, also an outreach specialist from Emergency Management.
Yep, I just love to teach people about emergency preparedness. That's what I do.
Great, thank you. Also on my left here is Ken Kraudy, an outreach specialist, and
yes, I'm also the State Citizen Corps coordinator.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Let me begin by telling you just a little bit about Be Ready Utah. It is the outreach campaign for the Division of Emergency Management, and which is a part of the Department of Public Safety. Our mission here is to help people take action towards preparedness, to work towards having a plan and getting prepared for those emergencies and disasters that could occur here in Utah. And we have a mantra called make a plan, get a kit, be informed, and get involved. So we're going to talk about those 4 areas in these PrepCasts, and including the 12 areas of preparedness that fall under that make a plan, that mantra. And today, our first area we're going to talk about is communications. It's important to have a plan for communications, right, Ken?
It is. Communications is a major factor and one of the biggest problems in any disaster.
Why is it a problem in a disaster?
That's usually one of the first things that collapses in an emergency. I mean, cell phones get overwhelmed or knocked over. So your communications, being able to contact your loved ones, your friends, your neighbors, whoever needs help or emergency services, that's usually one of the first things that gets lost.
Yeah, power outages can affect communications as well, and that's one of the first things that could happen in any emergency or disaster. So we are going to begin by talking a little bit about creating your own communications element in your family disaster plan. And for your family communications element, we talk about having an out-of-state telephone contact. Somebody important in your family that everybody knows how to contact, a relative or friend that's long distance or out of state, so that they're not affected by the emergency or disaster. Everybody should have that person's contact information, their cell phone number, email address, home phone, all that information. And then what do we do with that information in an emergency?
Well,
how do we use that out-of-state contact?
Well, we want to call that have everybody in the family or in your household call that person, because you may not be able to call anybody else. Everybody checks in with that person, and then the designated person, mom or dad, then calls and says, "Hey, I need to know how's Bobby doing, how's Betty doing," and that person says, "Well, they called in and said that they're okay. This is where they are. I haven't heard yet from Bobby. I'll call you back or send you a text." Actually, sometimes texting is better than even calling. So you get that contact, you're able to get that information that you need to find out how your family's doing.
Right, so basically everyone reports into your out-of-state telephone contact, and that person relays information back to everyone in the family. And that provides that communication link. We are able to communicate with one another in emergency or disaster, and that gives us peace of mind, knowing that we can be reunited with our loved ones again in an emergency or disaster through having that communication. The next part of our family communication plan is meeting places. We should have a meeting place outside of our home for that immediate emergency, the home fire, the earthquake or whatnot, and a meeting place outside of our neighborhood if we can't get back home. If the roads are damaged, if there's a roadblock, something like that, the neighborhood is evacuated, we have another place that we can meet. And it's important that everybody in the family knows where those meeting places are. Outside your home, it doesn't matter if it's the front yard, the tree in the front yard, the neighbor's porch, the street light out on the corner, whatever it is, just everybody in the family needs to know where that is, and then practice going to that meeting place outside of your house. Your meeting place outside of your neighborhood, again, is just a place that your family is familiar with. It could be your favorite store, the church, the school, grandma's house across town. Doesn't matter where it is, as long as everybody knows, and that you can practice getting there in an emergency or a disaster. And again, this provides peace of mind knowing that we can be reunited with our loved ones again.
One thing I was to say about that is you want to make sure that it's a specific location, not the park across the street, but maybe this specific park bench in the park across the street.
Good point.
Because in the chaos of, house fire or something, you've got all the neighbors coming out to watch, you've got the rescue vehicles and everything. people are going to get lost in that. So
Yeah.
make sure there's a specific place in the area that you're going to be meeting.
Exactly. Now, if you go to our website, BeReadyUtah.gov, you can find a brochure that we've created there for your use. You can print this off and then fill in the little cards with the information that we've been talking about. There's a place for your emergency contact, your out-of-state contact, your outside home meeting place, and your outside neighborhood meeting place. You fill this in with all that specific information on each of the cards, and then you can cut it out and put it in, give one of these to everybody in the family. All the family members can have that information with them in their wallet, their backpack, their glove box. Again, like you said, you can plug this information into your cell phone, but there's no guarantees that the cell phones will work. Texting is the most reliable method of communicating in a disaster. And we want to stay, by the way, we want to stay off of the phone in emergency, especially the local circuit, and keep the phones open for emergency response.
Right.
Okay. Anything else you want to add about that family communications plan?
I think anytime that you are going to be, one thing about it is it's preparedness. This has to be done before the emergency.
Absolutely. Yes,
We've got to make sure that this is done. I mean, this is an easy thing, like this card that Wade was talking about. There's 5 of them on there. That's something that take you 5 minutes to do. It can literally save your life, and it needs to be done beforehand. Teach your kids how to use it. Teach your kids how to safely use a phone, whether it's 911. When do they use it? When is it appropriate to use it? Everybody needs to know how to do this and practice your emergency contact.
And that's the thing I was going to mention too. Practice is really important, I think. It's one thing to have a written plan and have it written down, but practice it periodically so that you're used to it, so that everybody in the family is aware, and keep it in mind.
Yeah, and they're familiar. Okay, excellent, thank you. Let's go next into some of our emergency communication methods if the phone isn't working and maybe we're lost or something like that. So Bryan, you're going to talk to us a little bit about emergency communications.
Yeah, a lot of times for an emergency, you say you're lost in the wilderness, your building collapse, something like that. How are we able to communicate? Phone is not an option. Yelling is not always a very good option either. Owie, owie, I'm hurt, I need help. Your voice doesn't last that long. And what if you're out in the wilderness? People won't be able to hear you. So one thing you always want to carry with you, something so simple as just a little whistle. I carry one of these in my pocket every day. And it's 3 blasts on a whistle. Now, remember that, 3. 3 is the international sign of distress. Every time that you hear something in 3s, SOS, it's not save our ship, it's that D, dot, 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 D, D, D. It's 3s. That's the important thing to remember with any kind of signal. You're out in the wilderness or something, flash your flashlight 3 times. Gunshot 3 times, bang, bang, bang. Another great thing to have when you're going out and have in your car or in your backpack, something so simple as just a mirror. You can flash 3 times, flash, flash, flash at a passing airplane. This can be seen for miles. It can be seen much further than even just a little whistle. A flash from just something reflective. And again, remember 3, you want to make sure that you're doing 3s because that means I'm in distress. Going along with that, say somebody's flying overhead, you build yourself a really nice signal fire, help, I need help. Somebody flying overhead, they're going to see that and they're going to go, I wonder if they're doing s'mores down there. But if you put 3 campfire or 3 signal fires in a triangle, somebody flying overhead, they're not going to think, s'mores. They're going to think, oh, somebody down there needs help.
Good point.
So always remember, 3 is the international sign of distress. Whether it's banging on the wall, banging on a pipe, blowing on your whistle, flashing with your mirror, with your flashlight, with whatever. Remember 3.
Yeah, in a future PrepCast, I'm sure we'll be talking more about earthquake preparedness. We've got Shakeout coming up in April. And what do you do if you drop, cover, and hold on and you get stuck under that desk or that table or the chair where you were getting cover from an earthquake? You do tap. You find out some debris and you just start tapping, and the rescuers will listen for those noises and be able to locate people in that way. So signaling this is great for backpacking, for camping, for hunting, anytime in the outdoors, or in that disaster situation when you're separated from loved ones. Exactly. All right, thank you, Bryan. Great. Ken, our last topic today under communications, we're going to talk a little bit about a very reliable communications method in emergencies and disasters, right?
Ham radio.
Yes.
That's
amateur
exactly
radio.
right.
Ham
Amateur
radio.
radio. That's right. You know, one thing about ham radio is that whenever everything else goes down, cell towers, microwave signals, telephone lines and cables, ham radio still works. And so we're finding that ham radio is being used more and more in the disaster community, the disaster response community. Now, ham radio works because there is no other infrastructure besides your radio, and then the bands that you're working with, and then the radio on the other end that you're talking to. And so you can throw an antenna over a tree or a fence, and if you've got a battery and a radio, you're able to communicate. So ham radio is excellent. Now, ham radio does require a license. And there are 3 levels of licensures you can get. The first level is technician, and you simply take a test of about 35 questions. If you answer 26 of those correctly, you get your license.
Excellent. Good odds there.
But ham radio does have some limitations in terms of how many bands and so forth you can use depending upon the license that you have. The general license is the next step up, and you're able to also use more bands than that the FCC requires.
So if you get your technician license, you'll learn all that information
Yes.
there in the classes. You can go to a local amateur radio club. They will
Right.
teach these classes. You can go on a website and learn about the amateur radio use there as well.
If you just Google ham radio or amateur radio, you'll find all kinds of resources about how to buy radios, where to buy them, where to go for the licenses and so forth, and all that information is available.
And what makes amateur radio work so well in emergencies and disasters is it's part of the principle of preparedness in general is being self-sufficient, being able to take care of yourself and providing those things that you need yourself in an emergency or disaster. So amateur radio, they've got their power supplies and their antennas and their radios,
Right.
self-sufficient, right?
Yes.
That's what makes it work in
portable,
emergencies
that's right.
and disasters, and portable.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
I was going to say, how does this compare to like your family FRS walkie-talkies and all that? What's the difference
The
there?
difference is the number of bands you're able to communicate with. The FRS, the family radio service, and the general mobile radio service, GMRS, are limited in terms of the number of bands you can use. And it's mostly line of sight. With a ham radio license, you're able to talk across the state, across the country. You can even talk to the space station.
Did we need licenses for those other kinds of radios?
No.
Okay. So the FRS, I think the GMRS we do.
The GMRS, you pay for the license, I think, but I don't think there's any
There's no
test. There's no test
Right.
involved.
Just
Right.
register yourself.
Right.
Those are great tools to have for a family in emergencies and disasters as well. Having those little family radios in your disaster supply kit, like you would with having a signal mirror or a flashlight in your disaster supply kits as well. Having those radios there. We encourage everyone look further into amateur radio, see if that's something that you are interested in doing, and get your license. And learn more about that and be a resource in emergencies and disasters with your amateur radio.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we're about out of time here for our first ever Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Hopefully you've found some of this information informative and helpful to you in your planning for emergency preparedness, your family disaster plans. We are going to be doing this on a regular basis. You can look for us on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page. We'll be posting information about these PrepCasts on our social media, Twitter and Facebook, right? And on our website, BeReadyUtah.gov. Again, that's where you can go and find all kinds of information on BeReadyUtah.gov. We'll have information on these PrepCasts there as well. So next month, what are we going to be talking about, Brian?
Next month we're talking about water storage and treatment. How much water do we need to have? How can we store it? How can we treat it if we've used up all our stored water?
Okay, great. That sounds like a fun topic. I'm thirsty right now, so we're looking forward to some water storage for our next topic. Thank you for watching us. Please comment, let us know how we did, and if you've got any suggestions for future topics or if you have any questions we can answer for you, please let us know. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for joining us today.
We're #BRU PrepCast.
All right, hashtag BRU PrepCast. Again, thank you for watching us here on the Be Ready Utah PrepCast.